What's up, Rangers? How's everybody doing today? I'm Daddy Louie, in case you weren't here last week or you're unfamiliar with who I am. I am a member of a group called the Circle of Nerds. You can find most of my content on YouTube, youtube.com/Circle of Nerds, and we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have a website, Patreon, all that good stuff. We also have a podcast that comes out on Tuesdays. Big shout out, thanks to Renegade for having me back on stream. In case you couldn't tell from the intro picture, today we are painting Red Turbo Tommy Oliver. I put it up on the Facebook group. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, definitely go and check that out. It is where many happenings happen. I posted a picture on Saturday, I think, asking for people to vote on what they wanted to see this week, and Red Turbo was the winner by a long shot. People were saying they wanted to see that because it's a more difficult model to paint, and the reason for that is mostly because of the sculpt, which I will show you guys now. So if you look here, his blade is very close to his chest, so it's really going to be difficult to get in that crack right there. As far as colors go, the colors are pretty straightforward. Lots of red. There's some white boots, gloves, and like these armbands here around his arms. Those are all white. There's some black, not too much black, just some black highlights. And then there's a tiny bit of yellow, like in his chest area right around here. So the other difficult part about this model is he has some lines on his uniform, on his legs, his back, his chest, that are black. Now, I have a little trick for that. I've not painted this model, so hopefully my trick actually works. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to throw a bunch of red down, and then we are going to shade the model with a black shade. Hopefully all of those black parts will fill in with that shade, so we don't have to worry about actually drawing the lines, and then we can just highlight the red from there. So this time I don't have a reference model like last week when we painted the White Ranger, so I do have a picture pulled up on my computer and on my phone because I don't have it memorized. I also noticed when I was doing some research that he had two blades in the show. This one is different from the other one. The hilt, the top of the hilt here is red, so we're going to make sure we hit that with red. So colors I'm going to be using for our reds, we're going to use Mephiston Red, Evil Sun Scarlet, and possibly Wild Rider Red. I pulled this one out. I don't know if we're going to highlight up that bright, but definitely going to use these two. For our black bits, use Model Color Vallejo Black. For the white bits, we're going to use Althu and Gray like we did last week. Yellow, we're going to use Averland Sunset and Uriel Yellow. For the silver, he's got a lot of silver on his helmet. All these lines are silver, and kind of the lights in the top of the helmet, those are silver. We'll use Lead Belcher and maybe Stormhost to see how bright we want to get it. And then for our black shade, we're going to use Nuln Oil. You could use any black shade for this. You don't have to use this. And you can use any substitute colors. I'm just prefer Citadel paints. Except for black, I really like Model Vallejo color black. If you have any questions, I'm by no means a pro painter. Like I mentioned last week, I consider myself an intermediate painter, but hopefully I can give you some tips, especially for you beginners, that will help bring your painting level up just a little bit. But if you have any questions as we go, feel free to ask, and I will try to answer them. And yeah, I think that about covers it. Let's check the chat. Bromhead Tech says he wants a Doggy Kruger painted. So he is coming in the mail. I ordered the Ranger Ally pack, and it is not here yet. I was hoping that it would be here today, so that we could get started on that, but alas, it is not here yet. So when it gets here, I will paint Doggy Kruger first, since you have the jump on the requests. And until he gets here, we are going to keep painting Tommies from Legendary Ranger Tommy Oliver pack. So we're gonna start with Mephiston Red. We're gonna try and get the red on as quickly as possible because well, there's a lot of red. I use a wet palette for all of my painting. I highly recommend it to anyone who is, no matter what level of painter you are, using a wet palette will definitely help you out a lot. I just have this wet palette here, and I'm gonna use I'm not gonna use a number 0 brush. I'm gonna use a number 1 brush. It's the thickest brush I could find. Normally I would use a little bit bigger of a brush, especially when we're painting lots of one color. And yeah. So I hope everybody had a good week. All right, let's get some red on here. He's got some black parts up underneath his belt here, so we're going to avoid that. So I've been painting for about maybe 5 years or so. That's a real rough estimate, but it feels like about right. And there are a lot of colors, a lot of color paints that like I use religiously. Mephiston Red is one of them. In my opinion, it is just the best looking red out there. So if you are considering painting this model, or if you're painting along with me, get yourself a bottle of Mephiston Red. Let me know what you think. It's just one of my favorite model paints out there. We may have to do 2 coats of this. Actually, we probably won't do 2 coats. This is going on pretty thick. And we're going to be throwing that wash on there, and then we're going to be highlighting back up all these colors. So, also, I forgot to mention, before I turned on the stream, I washed this model with soap and water and an old toothbrush. I do that with all of the plastic models, especially ones that come in board games. It just helps get off any releasing agent that might be on the model. Some models don't need it, but I do it anyway, just to be on the safe side. And then once it dried, I spray painted this guy with Wraithbone White. It's actually more of like an eggshell color. That is a Citadel. Normally, when I'm painting white, I do not use Citadel spray paints because they are quite expensive. So I usually use just a plain old Rust-Oleum. The reason that I chose to go with that Wraithbone, the Wraithbone this time, is because red in particular is such a bright color. I wanted to make sure that I got good coverage of the primer, and Wraithbone does a really good job of that. Also, I was priming some other models as well, and I just wanted to do everything all at once, and that's just what I was using. But Rust-Oleum white primer, flat white primer, is usually my go-to for white priming, because it's like, I don't know, at my store it's like $4 or $5 for a can that lasts a long time, as opposed to something like Wraithbone, which is like $20. But you can use any primer. Like I mentioned last week, just start painting. Don't let the cost of things deter you from wanting to get into the hobby. Start cheap if you need to. Work your way up. Once you find your groove and your rhythm, just get painting. So those of you that have seen, Power Rangers Turbo, who is your favorite Ranger and why? I think you already know my answer, because Tommy is my favorite Ranger. Just taking my time right now. It's hard for you guys to see, painting underneath those arms and those hands. Trying to be careful around the belt buckle and the belt. If I do mess up, we can go back over it, but really the white is the hardest to paint over. So if we get red on the white, that's where we start to have a little bit of trouble. But again, it's okay if you do mess up, because we have that Ulthuan gray on standby to cover up those whites. Let me just check my reference picture here. I want to make sure. Looks like it's red everywhere except for that small almost rectangle on his chest and his collar. Everywhere else is red. Looks like he has a symbol here that might be yellow on his shoulder. Oh, this picture doesn't do a very good job of... Oh, both shoulders. He's got a yellow triangle. I see that now. So we'll just go over that with red, and then I'll cover it with yellow later. I don't have as much experience with the Turbo characters. I do remember watching it, just not as much as I watched Mighty Morphin or Dino Thunder. Or Zeo, of course. Did Turbo come after? Did it come after Zeo? Did it go Mighty Morphin, Zeo, and then Turbo? Was there something else in there? The other thing with the red... I'm sorry. The other thing with the primer is with that Rust-Oleum white primer, if you paint and like you'll notice my painting handle here has some of the primer on it, because I just literally went outside with the model on the handle and primed it that way. With that Rust-Oleum primer, it tends to be a little sticky, and it's very easy to rub off onto your hands while you're holding it, and then if you touch the model, then you get it on the model. That has happened to me many times, and it's very frustrating. With the Wraithbone that we used for this model, that doesn't happen. It doesn't matter how long you let that Rust-Oleum sit. You can let it sit for hours, days, and it'll still be sticky and come off on your hands. So just be mindful of that. This Wraithbone does not do that. But it's also not a pure white. So if you're looking for a pure white, you're going to have to look elsewhere. Because Wraithbone is more, like I said, like an eggshell color. Has anybody that's played the game, have you used Turbo Tommy? I personally have not. I'm curious what people's experience is with him, if he's any... I mean, all the Rangers are good, but is he good, like, with... is he good solo? Is he good 2 players? Is he good with more players? Curious here what you guys think. Looks like we got most of the red there. This is going to be the slowest part, is getting those base colors on. The other thing that you can do, and I guess I should ask the stream if they want me to do this sometime. I haven't done it yet because I don't want to take away from steps on the stream. But I could have used a contrast paint, thrown the red, for example, thrown the contrast paint on there, and then shown you guys some tips on how to highlight contrast paints, how to use them that way, or speedier painting. Contrast paints are really good for beginners. The only thing is that it does take contrast paints a little while to dry. So, it's a step that I would need to do off stream ahead of time, unless we were to do like a 2-part stream, maybe painting 2 models at the same time and then the next week finish them. So it's really kind of up to you guys if that's something you want to see. I thought about doing that with this model because I do have a really good, red contrast paint. So, you know, that's something that I could have done, but I would have had to have done that step off stream so that the contrast paint was dry when the stream started. Otherwise, literally, we would have been sitting here for like 20, 30 minutes just watching the model dry and talking. So, let me know if that's something that you guys are interested in. And, you know, like I said, there's 2 ways we could do it. We could do it where I just do that step off stream, or we can start 2 models at the same time, do 1 contrast, 1 not, and then while the contrast paint is drying, we could be painting the other model, and then, you know, the next week, pick up where we left off and finish both models, because I won't have enough time to do 2 models in 1 stream session. But learning how to use contrast paints is a tool that everybody should have. Some people, I have friends that once contrast paints came out, that's all they paint with. They won't paint with anything else. It's almost like spoiled them. Me, I just use them more as a tool in my toolbox than anything else. Alright, we got most of the red on. I'm just gonna put some red on this shield here. Or the shield of the hilt. You're just joining the stream, thanks for coming. Glad to have you here. Just taking my time underneath. Lots of little bits that are red, that are hard to reach. You can kind of see a little bit up underneath there. It's a little sloppy mess, but we'll clean it up. Right now I'm just focusing on coverage, making sure that I have all the coverage. All the coverage. Alright, that looks good to me as far as that red. Now we're going to switch over to the black. That way we can fix some of the parts that got red that we didn't necessarily want red. Let me look at my reference here. So he's got some black around his gloves and his boots, and kind of in his midsection area, and then some lines, and of course his face shield. The face shield, I'm not gonna necessarily worry about that until the end, really, because there's a lot of room for error because it's very small lines. So we'll see what that's like when we get there. Remember, I'm using Vallejo Model Color Black for the black bits. Vallejo paints tend to be super thick, so make sure that you water those down real well. I'm gonna keep using my #1 brush here. What's good about the #1 brush and the #0 brush is that it creates a tip that can be used for base coats and fine details. Always make sure I have a #1 and a #0 brush on me. Those are the ones that I tend to replace the most, as I use them the most. This part here, we're just trying to cover up the white. We don't have to be super careful, because we can go over all that later. Looks like there's some white on the top here. Chat's awfully quiet today. Everybody's still recovering from their 4th of July weekend. Anybody see any good fireworks or anything like that? Our town didn't have any fireworks because of COVID. Had a little parade, but it was like all like in your car parade. So there was like not much to look at. Which was kind of a bummer. And then we searching for a beach. We just moved to this town, so we went searching for a beach. Take the kids to. And the only beach that we found that was open, there was like a toxic water advisory. There were still people. In the water, but we were like, no, we're gonna not do that. So we ended up just going home. That was yesterday. Mostly I've just spent all weekend and down here basically in the new space trying to decorate and make it usable. Almost done. And almost done, and it'll be ready to go. On the other side of the room over here, we created like a gaming space. Once COVID is over, we can have people to game and play Power Rangers. Yeah, there's a little black. On there, so yeah. There's also one above his belt. I don't know if my brush will reach there. Let's see. Well, it does. Look at that. You guys probably won't be able to see this. Let's see. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. Okay. Then the outline of this little box on his chest is black. We might actually have to go back over this once we get the yellow in there. Yeah, we're gonna have to hit that yellow in there again later, but thank you for saying the space looks awesome. It's one of the selling points of buying this house, actually, because in the house that we were in before, like, streaming with you guys would have been impossible because where my computer and stuff was set up was right in the main living space. So with COVID, like, the kids were home, the dogs, like, it just wouldn't have been possible. But this space is out of the way, so I am able to stream and be here with you guys, so that's cool. I think the symbol here on the I keep wanting to say shield, the shield on the hilt. I think that's black too. Actually, it's yellow and black. Same with the and then he's got like a black square on the top of his head. I'm assuming that's his sunroof. Right? Because they're supposed to look like cars. Well, have car resemblances. let's see, the tire symbols on the side of his head. Those are, in some images it looks like they're black, and then in other ones it looks like they're silver. They look more silver to me. That's what we're gonna go with. We're gonna go with silver. There's also these little dents in the top of his helmet. I can't tell from any of these pictures if those are black or if they are just dents in the helmet. It looks like they're just dents in the helmet. I don't see any pictures that show it as being black. Then again, not many pictures show the back of his head. So we're just going to leave those alone for now. Get some black in the visor, and then move on to yellow. And then the little triangles under his eyes are black too. Actually, those bits that I just painted right there, those are silver. We'll have to go back over that in a minute. Alright, I think that's it for the black pieces. Not many. He does have a blaster on his belt. I think I saw a picture of his blaster earlier and it was red. Now that I'm thinking about it, I should go back and paint that red. Yep. It's red. So we're going to paint the blaster really quick. Go back to red before I forget. Again, I should say that before I forget again. And the shade that we use will help make that look like it's not actually part of his suit. Because right now, if you look at it, it just looks like it's part of his suit. But that's alright. So, assuming that the Ranger pack, the Ranger Ally pack that I have coming does not get here in the mail, which it should, but I know that because of COVID, they've been having a few delays with mailing stuff out, which is fine. Which Tommy Oliver should we paint next? I've got unpainted right now. I've got both versions of the Dino Thunder, the evil and the regular, the robot and the regular. I have Green Ranger from the Tommy Oliver pack. I have the Green Ranger villain from the original game, and I feel like I'm missing one. All of my White Rangers are painted now. So now we're going to switch to yellow. I'm going to use Averlin Sunset for this. He has very few yellow bits, but they really do make the model pop a lot. So we're going to take our time and make sure that we hit all of them. Yellow is a very difficult color to paint. It's probably the worst or the hardest color to paint. Some people say white, some people say yellow. I say yellow. So this will be interesting. So the little coins, or I don't know what these are supposed to be, on his belt in the middle, those are yellow. I'm gonna make sure we paint those yellow. The symbol here on the shield of the hilt is yellow in the middle, and then black on the outside. So we just want to make sure we get that yellow in the middle. Because yellow is so thin, such a thin color, you may, you're most likely going to have to go back over it, you know, 2 or 3 times. So make sure that it's dry and then go back over it. Right now what I'm doing is I'm just putting a decent amount of paint on the brush, and I'm just kind of like laying the brush into those symbols on his shoulders and letting the paint flow into the cracks, because on the symbol themselves, it's the inside that's yellow and then the outside is black. So if I can just let the paint fall into the little crevices, I can go over it with black. The one on this shoulder isn't as predominant as the one on the other shoulder. I'm just kind of making it up. But it's little triangles. See? And then we also have to put yellow paint in the square on his chest. I say it's a square, although I know it's not a square. But I don't know what shape it is. Geometry was not my strong suit. Again, I'm just kind of like putting my brush there and letting the paint flow out of my brush and into that space. And you can see it's not even, but I can go back over that spot with black to cover it up. Right now I'm just worried about getting the coverage of the yellow. So the hardest part right now is going to be the lines around the collarbone. So I don't want as much paint there. And I'm going to hold my breath so that I don't screw this up. There we go. Hard to see on the camera, but the yellow is going in on that spot quite nicely. And again, we can go over the black. I probably, in hindsight, I probably should have done the yellow first and then the black. But that's all right. If you're watching this before you paint yours, that would be a tip I would give you, is just make sure that you do the yellow before you do the black. It's just easier. Because we left the white bits white, it's helping to make that yellow show up more. Alright, all the yellow is where it needs to be. I'm just going to go over it again. So that it pops a little more. Getting those, I guess they're headlights, whatever it is that's on his belt there. Get those. Letting the paint go in the cracks there. Another thing you could do, if you wanted to, got a little yellow on there, it's alright. You could prime the model in red. The challenge with that is getting the white and the yellow, mostly the white, covered up. So, for example, on the gloves, the neck, the boots, the belt, these little shoulder bands, those all have to be white. So if you primed the model in red, you would have to go over all of that with white. And white over any color is tough. It's toughest over black and over red. Over blue, it's not so bad because blue is, kind of makes a cool shade for white. Well, I got a lot of yellow on the mask right there. See where I accidentally bumped the helmet. All right, so we're gonna let the yellow dry, and then we'll come back and see if we need to go over it. I think it's bright enough. We're gonna highlight it anyway. So now we're gonna fix that red bit on the helmet because I have to do the silver next. There we go. Helmet is now red again. Back in the olden days, people used to wash white clothes with bluing. I did not know that. Blue makes white brighter. That is true. You can also use blue to shade white if you wanted to get like a blue-gray. I tend to shade mine with black because I like to have darker shadows, but some people like lighter shadows, and one way to do that is to use a light blue. So now we're going to do silver, right? So I'm going to use a I don't know what you call these things. I guess it's a paint palette. I don't like to water my metallics down with the whatchamacallit, the wet palette. So we're going to use this palette, and we're using lead belcher. Get the blade here, being a little more careful than normal. Now we have to be very careful around the shoulder part. So if I stop talking for a minute, it's because I'm holding my breath. One tip that I have for you guys, especially your newer painters, is if you have shaky hands like I do, when you're doing things that you want a more precise paint job, I guess, hold your breath. And the reason that you hold your breath is because it slows your heart rate down, and it'll help you control your hand movements a little better. I learned that being in the military. Because when you go to the firing range or whatever, they tell you right before you pull the trigger to hold your breath. It slows your sway down, I guess. So same rule applies when you're painting. So that's why I stopped talking when I'm doing like more precise stuff. Not because I don't love you guys, because I do. It's because I holding my breath. Of course, the bouncy music doesn't help because I just want to bounce around to the music, and I can't because I'll screw up. But hopefully, wherever you're listening, you're enjoying the bouncy music. Okay. Looks pretty cool. Just looking at my picture here, my reference picture. Like everything else on the mask is silver. Although there's this weird line underneath. Weird line underneath his. It's this line that connects the wheels on the side of the helmet from one side to the other. In the pictures, it's hard to see if it's painted or not. So once again, because Renegade makes amazing models, the lines around the visor here are super, they're nice and raised. So you just take your time and kind of go at an angle, and it will help you to not get silver paint where you don't want silver paint. Although I said that and then I just got silver paint where I didn't want it, but that's alright. Are there any rangers that are not in the game right now that you guys are excited to see? Alright, well that's all the silver bits. He's coming together pretty nicely. Is Dino Charge the newer? It's newer, right? Like, I saw something on Facebook. I think it was Dino Charge they were talking about, where like the Rangers got like almost like suits of armor. I'm wondering if that was Dino Charge. I want to say it was, but so now I'm seeing like a bunch of mistakes I made. Not a bunch, but a couple. I'm just going to go over those mistakes real quick before we throw the shade on. Dino Fury, I think that's the one I was thinking of. The other thing I want to do before I throw the shade on, before I forget, is I want to get the black bits on these symbols that I painted during the yellow step. So I want to be very light with this, because I don't want I don't want to get the black on the yellow. Then we have to redo the yellow step, and I don't like the yellow step. See how that looks? Because we did the yellow before we did the black. It makes it so much easier. And then we'll just fix the black on the chest. Got some black where I didn't want it. But I can fix that in the shading stuff. All right, well, there are some spots where the white has paint on it. You have two options here. You can fix it now, or you can wait and fix it after the shading. Normally, I would fix it now because I'm very OCD about stuff like that. But since we're at an hour, I want to get that shade on so we can fix it in the shade. These are our base colors on. You can see the mistakes that I made. There's a little too much black in the chest area there. I got some red on the gloves that needs to be fixed up. The symbols on the shoulders can be cleaned up just a little bit. But the helmet looks really good. And most of the other white bits did not get paint on them. This is his blaster here. So that all looks good. So we're going to skip now to the shade step. We're going to use Nuln Oil. It's my go-to. I'm going to use a shade brush. You can use any old brush for this step. I have like a pot of old brushes. And we are going to cover the entire model, even the white parts. Because just like with Tommy, we can't, or just like with Tommy, this is Tommy. Just like with White Ranger, we really want the definition of, you can see the lines and stuff, the folds in the uniform. So just make sure that the shade is pooling in the spots that you want it to pool. Especially those cracks in the uniform. Remember we talked about at the beginning of the stream how the lines in the uniform, we want them black, and you can see them start to pop up now as we're putting the shade in. And I don't, if I do this correctly, which I'm hoping I do, I should not have to paint a single one of those lines, and it will look screen accurate, because this black wash is going to go into those folds really, really nicely. I just need to make sure that when I'm putting the wash on, that it's flowing in there. You can kind of see another line right there. Now, if once we're done, you notice that there's a line that maybe it didn't get in, you can fix that two ways. You can either paint it, which we're not going to do because that's too much work and too stressful. Or you can just put more shade on it, which is the method we're going to go with. Those lines are really predominant in the back of the uniform here. I want to make sure that I get them, get the wash to pool in there. Normally for a red model, or a model that is predominantly red in color, I would use a red wash. But again, we're using the black wash because we want the black to go into those lines on the uniform so that we do not have to paint them all individually. It's a lot of freehand. Very time consuming. All right. Now it looks like we got wash everywhere. So now I'm going to clean off my brush. And I'm going to get rid of the pooling in spots that I don't want it. I'm going to do that just by touching it lightly and absorbing the wash out of there. So there's a lot of wash here on The front of the leg, I don't want that there. Some of the boots. And you can make him as dirty or as clean as you want. And when I say dirty, I mean as shadowy. See right here, this really dark line? That's one of the lines of his uniform. I want it to be dark, but I don't want it to be that dark. Now look at it. That's just for me absorbing up some of that wash. But I do want it right here, like in the folds of the gloves, in between the fingers. I don't want it pooling too much in between his uniform and his sword, or they touch. On the helmet there, I want really nice definition in the circles of the, I think they're tires, or they're supposed to be tires. Come over here, and as this flows out, I'm picking it up, moving it around a little bit. Alright, that looks good. And if you wanted to, you could stop right now. This could be where you stop painting. He's definitely ready for the table. You know, you could have stopped before the wash too. Just get the base colors on and you're ready to go. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you want to go a little further and highlight back up, that's what we're gonna do. On the camera, that red looks pretty bright. In person, it's actually a little dark for me. So, if you wanted it this color red, you could just highlight back up with Mephiston red and just be done with it. But I'm gonna go a little bit brighter, and I'm gonna use the Evil Sun Scarlet. Totally up to you what you want to do. We're just letting it dry for a second. We will probably go over the... I'll probably do the red bits first. Since that's the majority of the model. You could do the white next, but I'm going to save the white just in case I get red in places I don't want it. Like here, I noticed when I was doing the wash, there's a little bit of red on the neck, which I didn't want, so. But yeah. We will start next with the Mephiston red, once we give that another minute or two to dry. So next week, hoping that the Ranger Ally pack will be here, and we'll start working on that with Doggy Kruger. If not, then I'll put up another poll on the Facebook group. So if you are not a part of the Facebook group, I highly recommend that you join it. There's just a lot of really great people there. People will post their paint jobs. They'll also ask questions about the game. The designer, pretty much every employee of Renegade is a part of that group, so you can ask them questions as well, and all of them are super responsive and super helpful. So if you are into this game, models, the game itself, whatever it is that you're into, definitely go and join that Facebook group if you're not already. Which I'm assuming everybody in the stream is, but I just like giving that little plug because it's such a great group of people. for the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I do have a painting guide on how to paint all of them using the same techniques on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Circle of Nerds, so you can go check that out. I paint Billy. I think I have Bulk and Skull painting tutorial up there, a whole bunch of stuff, so definitely go and check those out. The paint the wash is taking a while to dry. I'm not really sure why. It usually doesn't take that long. Let's see. I should get a hair dryer. That would be helpful. Looks like the white area is going to be dry first, so we'll start by highlighting the boots, and hopefully the red is dry by the time we're done with that, and we can move on. So I'm using Ulthuan Gray. Don't let the name fool you. It's white, and like Mephiston Red, it is one of my favorite paints. Period. I actually just bought a new bottle of it last week for the stream. I use it for everything. It's just not as chalky as other whites. It is just as thin as other whites, though, so you do need multiple coats. Why you gotta go after my lack of hair like that, Jake Wellen? No, you're right. Yesterday we went to the grocery store to buy vinegar because we have poison oak in our backyard, and I'm trying to get rid of it naturally without having to buy chemicals because we have dogs, and I don't want to treat the yard with chemicals if it's going to bother the dogs. So I read online that you can kill it with distilled vinegar, salt, and dish detergent. So we went to the store, and I got 2 ginormous bottles of distilled vinegar and like, I don't know, 10 pounds of salt. It was a lot of salt. And the grocery store that we went to also makes really good, like, fresh popcorn. So every time I go in there, I have to get popcorn because I just have to do it. So we went up to the register to pay, and I've got these 2 giant bottles of distilled vinegar and all this salt, and then just this random bag of popcorn. And the lady behind the register looked at me like, what in the world are you doing? Why do you need all of that, vinegar? At least I wasn't buying, like, bleach, right? I'm being very, very slow with painting these boots because I'm trying to let that, let the red dry. For some reason, it is still not dry. I usually don't have issues with shades. I mean, maybe I used more than I normally do. It's entirely possible. But those boots look pretty good. Then when we got home from the store, I was like, I'm gonna go spray the weeds. Because it was a hot day, so I was hoping, you know, the weeds would just like drink it up. And then we had a nasty thunderstorm and it washed all the vinegar away, so I gotta do it again. That's fun. And what's even crazier about the storm is that I checked the weather and it said there was no rain. And then it just poured and poured and poured for like hours. It was crazy. Did anybody get to play Power Rangers this weekend? Anybody have company over or have a game night? I have not gotten to play in like since COVID, and it's driving me nuts. I've gotten a lot of hobbying time, painting time. But then with the move, I really didn't paint very much. Zeo Gold looks like a fun model to paint. Mine is, well, I actually took him out of the box this weekend. Finally. But he does look fun to paint. The red is almost dry. I think we'll get all the white done before we even get the friggin' red started. Holy moly. Yeah, Terry is very, very talented. And what I love about her is that she just makes everything seem so simple. And watching her taught me to use makeup brushes for my dry brushing, which I had never ever thought to do before. I had been painting for years, and it like changed my life. Although admittedly I am not very good at dry brushing. It's probably one of the things I'm weakest at. So it's a skill that I'm still developing. But her dry brushing videos were like some of the first videos that I watched. And when I do get around to like painting the putties and stuff, dry brushing will be my friend. Alright, well, that's all the white highlighted. Hopefully that looks as good on picture as it does in person, because it looks really good. And all of our reds are finally dry. So, we can go back to red. We're going to go back to our base color of Mephiston red. and we're going to find the spots that we want to highlight. This won't be as splotchy as the white was, so you can be a little quicker with it. It doesn't. You don't have to go as slow. And remember those lines on the uniform, we want to avoid them. So make sure that when you are around those areas, the point on your tip is as sharp as you can get it. So like I'm gonna go here on the back, and there's this area here. Let's see if I can see this area right there in between the two lines. You just want to make sure that you take your time. And we can add color back in there. So you notice while I'm painting, I'm avoiding some of the darker areas because I want to leave some shadows, but you don't want to necessarily leave too many shadows. Like that shadow right there that I just covered up, that was too dark. I just want to get the paint as close to those spaces as possible, without making like unnecessary shadows, or shadows in places that there wouldn't necessarily be. And I want those lines to be predominant, so Lost a little bit of my line there. Show you guys how to get that back. I did it on purpose for education. I could show you guys what to do. Pants are looking pretty good. You can see the lines in the uniform, which is what we wanted. You can get as close with the paint as you want, as long as you don't go over. We got some nice shadows under the legs there. Just what we want. So we already did the sword. Got the arm up here. I'm going to do this a little bit faster because we're at the 30-minute mark now, and we still have to get to that silver because that's really what's going to bring this whole thing together. Also, we may want to bring the highlights of the red up a little bit, so we'll check that out if we have time. But again, if this is the color red that you want, by all means, you can leave it. I just want it to be a slightly brighter red. Because again, in person, it's a little darker than it looks on screen. But for Red Ranger Mighty Morphin Red, I did not highlight up more than this. I just highlighted the red with the Mephiston red. I didn't use anything else. But for Turbo, I feel like Turbo needs to be a little brighter. And for all you gamers out there, we all know that the more red that you have, the faster you go, right? So red makes you go fast. Sorry, I don't mean to pull it off camera. I'm trying to get it close to my face so I don't screw up. Alright, that red looks great. You just gotta get the red on the helmet. And this we might end up having to go over again because I just know I'm gonna screw up. So it's that silver. So if you look at the top, you can see those dents in the helmet I was talking about earlier. They're filled in now with that black shade. So I'm gonna personally, if you guys have a picture or you've seen the top of the helmet, I don't know if those are supposed to be black. I'm gonna make mine red because I couldn't find a screenshot of what they're supposed to be. And I did get some red when I was just pointing to that. Look, I got red on the ear. Silly boy. That's alright. Like I said, I knew that the helmet was going to be tough, so. What's everybody's dinner plans for today? I think we're having nachos. And then I gotta go back to the grocery store because when I went to get the vinegar, I didn't get anything else. So, yay. That's fun. Little post-stream grocery shopping for me. Like I said, that's it. I mean, like, you could stop right now. If we didn't have any more time left, we could stop, and I would be totally 100% happy with this model. I got all the black lines that I wanted to. The red looks like a pretty good color, especially on camera. But we're gonna keep going. So next we're going to do the silver bits, and I want them to be very shiny. So I'm going to use Stormhost silver for this. Because in all the pictures that I saw, his helmet, those bits on the helmet were like chrome. They were so shiny. This paint is very watery, so make sure you shake it up real good. Tilapia. That sounds great. No one in my house except for me likes fish, so I have to like go out to eat in order to eat fish. Dairy Queen also sounds pretty amazing. I feel like I haven't had ice cream in a hot minute. It's been a while. So with this Stormhost silver, like I said, it's a watery paint. You want to make sure that your the tip of your brush is really pointy, and this is more of a high. You just lightly want to go over the spots that are silver, and hope that you don't, like, you're not like me and you don't get any of this silver in any spots you don't want silver. So if I don't breathe for a minute and I don't talk, that's why. Tilapia is cheaper. Getting these little bits over here is challenging. Let me get close down there. That looks pretty good, but I see a mistake. I don't know if you guys see it. And it's bothering me. I'm gonna fix it right now before I move on. Let's see. I get just a little more Stormhost Silver in my palette. Or my pot thing. I don't really have enough. There we go. And then I'm just gonna do like an edge highlight of the Stormhost with the for the blade. All right, looks great. Well, I'm glad that you are hyped to paint this ranger because he is actually a lot of fun to paint. I was nervous about painting him because when I posted on the Facebook group, everybody was like, yeah, paint this guy for the challenge. And he was challenging, but he was a lot of fun. So I'm getting a little more of the Averland Sunset Yellow because I want to brighten those yellows back up that we dulled down earlier. And then I'm realizing as I'm painting this that I probably want to go up one more brightness of color because it's not... Well, see, I'm looking at a picture of him and it looks to be more of like a mustardy color than a bright yellow. So let's stick with this color for a minute, and then if we don't like it, we can brighten it. I don't know, that looks like the appropriate amount of brightness on that yellow to me. Maybe we'll hit it with a super bright yellow, just for like an extreme highlight, but... lot of the yellow in these shoulder markings that we put in earlier is completely faded down to black. I think it's because I let the wash pool up there. And that's okay. We got it back. So now we just need to brighten up the yellow around the collar. I'm gonna not breathe for a second again because I do not want to have to go over the black again. Alright, that's our yellow. And I think I am going to highlight it back up again with a brighter yellow. So let's use Uriel Yellow. The thing I don't like about Uriel Yellow is that it is a very watery color. It's very transparent. So we may have to do multiple coats. We'll see. Losing the tip of my brush. Make sure that you get those small circles on the belt. They are easily forgettable because the belt is covered by his hands when looking at him straight on. Looks like one coat will be enough. We got the symbol on the shield. You guys are supposed to remind me of that stuff. I'm gonna go over that again with black, because I'm really trying to let that yellow like kind of soak in there. We'll come back with the black in just a second. Breath holding time. Yeah, the yellow is really nice, isn't it? When I was looking up reference pictures earlier, I was like, there's yellow in the most random places. Why did they do that? And then I realized now that I'm painting it, it really just pops on that red. Cool. All right. So a couple little mistakes that we can fix real quick. One is I got a little bit of yellow on the neck. That is a quick fix. Make sure that you clean your brush real well. Yellow stains real easily, so. while you have white on your brush. If there's anything you want to fix from earlier, you can. I'm actually pretty happy with all the white. I'm gonna leave it. And then we need black again. Hopefully this is the last time we're using black. Okay. Face mask looks good. The top of the helmet looks good. Where did we need black? Oh, right, on the shield here. All right. Okay. So we're at the point now where, like, we're pretty much done, right? The one thing that I wanted to show you is, let me just make sure that I'm not missing anything before I say we're done. So the thing that I wanted to show you is the difference in reds. So we did the Mephiston red, and like I said, if you're happy with the color of this red, by all means leave it alone. Me personally, I want to see at least what one shade lighter is. So we're gonna use Evil Sun's Scarlet. And I'll start on his back, so that way if I don't like it, it's easier to fix. And these are going to be more of like extreme highlights. I'm not necessarily going to change the color of everything. What do you guys think? You can kind of see the difference between, this piece here that I just painted and this piece here that's not painted. It's subtle, especially when looking at it from a distance. You can't really tell the difference. I can tell you that in person, it is definitely a much brighter red, which is kind of what I was going for. And you don't have to be you don't have to get this paint everywhere. You just need to get it on the most raised edges. So like I said, you can completely skip this step. I just want my reds to be a little brighter. He looked perfectly good how we had him a minute ago. So you're gonna want to seal your model when you're done painting. As always, I will be using Tester's Dull Coat. And then if you want to give your helmet a shine after the Tester's Dull Coat to make it look like it does on the show, then you could do a layer of what is called Ard Coat. It is a technical paint from Citadel. It's clear, and it just goes on and it gives it a shine. You don't have to do that. Just depends on if you want a shiny helmet or not. I've only got a couple of minutes left on stream. I want to thank Renegade for hosting me again. It really is... it's an honor to work with them and to be here with you guys. I just love doing this, so any opportunity that I get to do it is wonderful. If you want to find more of me, you can do that. I am everywhere on social media at Circle of Nerds. If you do the YouTube thing, most of my content is on YouTube. Also at Circle of Nerds. Go over there and subscribe. I do painting guides and game reviews, and I have lots of Power Ranger content over there. And let's see what else. I hope that all of you have a wonderful week. I hope that you all stay safe and you have recovered well from the 4th of July weekend. And all that good stuff. Next week, like I said, hopefully we'll have that Ranger Ally pack. And if not, then we will have more of my favorite, I didn't say our, you guys are probably all different, my favorite Ranger, Tommy Oliver. And a couple more little teeny tiny bits of red. Super teeny. Well, I am shocked that we got all of that red done in time, but we did. All right. There he is. This is Tommy Oliver, Turbo Red. Yeah, I think he turned out really well. I'm going to paint the base. I paint all of my bases the color of the Rangers. So this base will be, of course, red. And there you go. So thank you again, everybody, for joining me. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.